All right, let's try to get this knocked out, hopefully in one take. We'll see here. So who am I? John Hope. I'm an M365 solution architect for Enforcer currently. I've spent the last 15 years at an MSP, partaking in Azure architecture. I was an Azure solutions architect by trade. Now my primary responsibilities are M365 security, tenant configuration through a company called Enforcer. Absolutely love the product. Have been blogging about it for quite some time, but one of my main passions is intra and identity access management. So I am in the past year, I've started blogging quite a bit about identity access management, intra user identities, all things kind of combined with some Azure in there. And a couple weeks ago, I released a project that I've been working on for honestly probably a year with just best practices, things I've been putting together in a GitHub repository. And I released this article which basically gave everyone access to some of my best practices and real world experience that I've had as an architect and helping companies implement Microsoft best practices around conditional access. Have my own kind of defense in depth approach that I've taken, years of just understanding best practices, things that have worked and not worked, things that we've had to exclude. And it led me to publish this, which was a mixture of tools, best practices, links across the board, everything that I was really passionate about. I released so that people could have access to it. They could copy it. They could do what they wanted with it. They could see the approach that I took. I'm all about like sharing with the community because there's so many great just MVPs out there that share their knowledge freely, and I think it's important that we continue to push the community forward by sharing ideas, sharing best practices, things that have worked and not worked. So I say all that to kind of paint a picture of the story and what I'm releasing today. So all of this led to, as you could see, I'm going to scroll back here, and we're going to go back. All this came the past couple of weeks. I did some follow up articles on that, and one of the things that really stood out was this article, MFA for all, but not the same. Um, and so this really dug in and kind of hyper analyzed what it was that I did with my MFA for all users, a standard policy that everyone should have, right? And the one thing that was common was there were so many gotchas and differences of opinions on what you should do and shouldn't do. I had security architects from all over the world reach out to me. Um, Great input, great recommendations. Some saying, CIS doesn't recommend this, or some saying, well, you shouldn't need a directory synchronization account. And the idea was the same. There's always context that has to come to light whenever you make these statements, right? There is no one right way to do this, and the recommendations are always changing. The CIS statement, for instance, CIS now recommends a certain way. That creates issues based on how this policy was configured. Directory synchronization accounts. Well, Entra Connect, as of 2.579, I think it was, updated to application-based authentication. So there is no directory synchronization account. So you're basically just creating a gap. But that doesn't mean that if you're on an older one and not, as up to date as you should be, just like the people out there that are still running Server 2012 in the year of 2026, that this isn't pertinent for you. So I say all that to say there are so many best practices. There's so many gotchas when it comes to these things. And that was the point of releasing the repository. But one thing I noticed when I released this repository is how many tools I use, how many links I go into. You can see here, Merrill Fernandez, I love his PowerPoint export of conditional access because when I'm implementing conditional access, one of the best things about it is having something to document it. I talked about Fabian Batter's intrascopes and understanding the context of like the gaps that you create by making one single exclusion. There's so many people across the industry that have all this knowledge that have pulled together and they've made this awesome thing. And I'm 4 minutes in, I'm talking about, all this stuff. But I say all this to kind of talk up an idea that I had. And this idea is actually coming to light as a reality because let me find my screen here. Let's see where I'm going. I'm going right here. So that brings me to a little side project, CAPolicyAnalyzer. And this was an idea that I got after all the feedback, all the differences. I was actually talking to Nate Hutchinson about some of the time I'd been spending recently on token protection and the gotchas that I ran into. And it was because I didn't do a good job of reading all the known issues. And I was like, it would be so cool if there was a tool that took into account best practices, frameworks, the gotchas. Go and check the MS Learn documents and tell me if there's something that I'm missing here and keep up to date and keep looking at these things. I don't know of a tool that does this today. So I said, you know what? I got Claude. Let's figure out how to build something. And you can see here, I've been pounding away at getting this built out, different issues, different things that I've wanted to do. And I'm at a point where this is actually turned into a pretty cool, useful tool. And I want to go over it. So what is CAPolicyAnalyzer? It is a tool that I have built that connects into my conditional access repo, as well as connects into multiple open source tools like Fabian Batter's Intrascopes, awesome tool, MS Learn documentation, GitHub, um, things like Delta Pulse and the changes, CIS recommendations. And so you can see over here, I had Claude just give me a quick rundown. What is the CAPolicyAnalyzer? It's a free browser-based security tool that analyzes Entra ID conditional access policies against industry best practice and known attack patterns. It is a multi, tab tool that is both optimized for the web and mobile. I was very clear to make sure it worked on mobile. Sometimes all you have is a phone. It is 100% client side. There is nothing to install. It is all web based. You can literally click the link in my GitHub. I'm hosting it on GitHub pages. I am not siphoning any data. If someone goes and looks at it and says you're siphoning data, dude, I don't even know how to siphon data. If I could figure out how to siphon that data and give it to Google, that'd be awesome because then I could. That is not the intent here. The intent was when I was doing conditional access projects, I wish I had something like this that would call out the gaps and let me know. And so this is just a rundown of what it looks like. And I'm going to go through the tool. I also wanted to point out that in the GitHub, it's going to talk about the security posture scoring. So this is kind of a custom thing that I did because it's like I just want to see how I am, and it's built for me. So let's keep that in mind. And I do a conditional access a specific way. So part of the scoring, 25 points of it, you can see is template coverage. That is basically going against my best practices with my templates. So maybe you don't care about that. This score means nothing to you. So probably the highest you're going to get at that point's a C. And if that's it, hey, you're doing great. And that just means you're not following any of the template coverage that I have in my GitHub. And I'll explain and show that a little later. But maybe you're hitting 100% of the CIS alignment and you're hitting all 25 points in the configuration quality, meaning you have no excluded apps that are creating gaps and things of that nature. Awesome. Then you're at best practice. And I'm thinking about reworking it. So just to create an exclusion. So if you don't care about my template coverage, you just exclude that and it'll change the weighting on it. And so you would hit 100% there. But right now it was built for me. So sorry, not sorry. I don't know. One of those things. But let's get into it. Let's see what it is, why I'm so excited about this, because it's honestly turned out to be pretty cool. It's a little side project I had. You can see here the actual conditional access project here in GitHub that I've been working on, some of the visualizations again, but let's jump into the actual project and see what it looks like. And actually, I'm going to go from the beginning. So let's go to the beginning. I want to show you everything. Oh, well. So let's see here. So like I said, you can bring myself up here. I'm going to launch it directly from my GitHub. So you can see here, CAPolicyAnalyzer. This is going to be the welcome screen that you come to. Connect your Entra ID tenant to analyze your conditional access patterns. Is looking for best practices against the family of client IDs. So yes, please make sure to give credit to Fabian Batter and all the work that him and other great MVPs are doing, because a lot of my recommendations come from things they're doing. So I want to show what it's going to do here. So let's go ahead and connect up to the tenant. That is not the tenant I'm going to be connecting to. Nope. Give me 1 second. Oh, no. Excuse me while I use my passkey, because, that's what we do around here. Not a single password was given that day. Jan Backer. I do have synced passkeys on for this account, so we're going to use that. And All right, so I'm connected as John Hope, and I'm going to run analysis. And this is first time releasing this, first time talking about this. This is the intro screen. So I want to point out a couple things here. So this is what you're gonna get to when you run the initial analysis. You can see here, it's going to show you the tenant you're connected to and the tenant ID. Um, it's going to give you a quick breakdown of your security posture score. I'm currently at a D. I've got some work I can do. One of the big things I wanted to do with this is a lot of the tools that grade you, they don't take into account your licensing. I wanted this to take into account. So this tenant is running business premium. So you can see here that it is detected only P1 and Intune Plan 1 are available license. So it's not going to score against me that I don't have all the P2, high risk for user sign-ins. I can't do those. So, there's no point in counting that against me. And it's going to give me some information, hey, this is going to be the findings. So there's 19 high vulnerability findings, 9 medium. And then it's giving me a breakdown of there are 43 total policies, 28 of them are currently disabled, 7 are report only, 8 enabled. And we're going to break that down even further, and I'm going to show you more about that. So what's the first tab? Let's go over to the policy tab. I absolutely love this. So this tab is broken down right now by findings. So findings, we're going to get into in a second, but you'll see them here. Findings are actually going to break down. We're going to break open what it looks like when you open up one of the policies. And I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to sort by name real quick. And the reason I want to sort by name is because I want to show you this button right here. We can hide the Microsoft policies. If you're like me, you do not like looking at the built-in Microsoft policies. So I have moved those over so I don't have to look at them. And I'm going to go back to findings. And so the reason I want to do this is I want to go and I want to break into what this policy comprises of. So what it's doing is it's analyzing what the policy is, showing me it's enabled, and it's giving me a visual breakdown of what the policy looks like. And it's telling me that there's 3 apps excluded. It's showing me which groups are excluded. It's showing me that there's a directory synchronization account is excluded from the roles. Now, this is where the magic happens. It is taking into account best practices, going out to intrascopes and telling me what it sees based on industry best practices. So let's take a look at this. It says, hi, excluding apps from the all cloud leagues, the graph and Azure AD scopes. This is information pulled directly back from Intrascopes and Fabian Batter's infrastructure that he talks about with the gaps that get created when you make exclusions. And so it tells me what that does. So because apps are excluded, by default, there are some unprotected aspects within conditional access that happen automatically. There's more. So there's 3 apps excluded from this policy. It calls out each app that is excluded. So the idea here is, okay, apps are excluded. Well, one, what do those apps do? Why are they excluded, right? Like maybe you're coming in and someone created this before you and you don't know what it does. Well, why is Microsoft Rights Management Services excluded? So one thing it does is it breaks down what each of those apps' purposes are and why they may be excluded, but it also applies a security risk. So it's pretty low risk. Microsoft Rights Management, that's a pretty low risk application. But Azure Windows VM Sign-In, that's a medium risk. Maybe I don't want that, right? Maybe medium and high, I want to make sure those are gone. So it breaks that information down so that you can make a best practice kind of conversation and discussion on what you should be doing here. It's also just then just saying that there's a potential bypass path and what you should do here. And that's pretty much it for that portion of the tab. So let's talk about findings. And I'm not gonna go through all of them here, but there's some really good stuff to go through. So let's talk about the Swiss cheese model. Again, this data is coming back from Fabian Batter's Intrascopes, and this is a crucial thing that people just forget about. So the idea here is to present that information in the policies, but if you want more and to understand more, you can come into the findings tab and just look through each of the different things. And what I did here is a little different method. So what I did here is I focus in on what the weakness is and then any of the policies that are affected. So you can see here, I've got 2 Intune policies that are impacted by this. This is the grant controls using OR. Weakest controls effective. People forget that all the time, that when it's or and, the OR operator is going to default to the weakest control. So that's the best practice. You may want to do and. You may want to reconfigure and not just say, hey, Azure AD joined or intra joined, intra registered, because then you just basically you killed the security posture of it. Almost anyone can intra-register, right? That's completely different than hybrid join or intra-direct joined, right? And Intune. So if you have a policy that's like that, that OR operator would severely weaken that policy. Resource exclusion bypasses. This is just calling out the fact that we've got a number of policies that do have service principals bypassed. When you do that, any resources excluded, these scopes become unprotected, and it lists out which scopes become unprotected by default. One of the last ones are just the app exclusions. And again, we've got 4 app exclusions. And so it's showing the policy, and it's showing, again, that criticality, and it's giving you an understanding of why this app is considered critical and it being excluded. So again, super stoked on this. I've never had anything other than manually going in and checking this to just call it out right here and there. And I'm kind of excited about it. The other things are just policy state, pointing out, hey, you've got a ton of policies in report only mode. They're not doing anything. No action is going to be taken. So just a subtle reminder. And then the immune response, you're excluding these apps. They're not going to get stopped by conditional access in any way, and just giving you an opportunity to review that. So what is the template overview tab? What is this? This is something that I'm pretty stoked on, because this is the tie-in back to my GitHub repository, right? I've wanted a way to kind of always connect back and see how I'm doing against my own policies, naming conventions, and everything else. So you can see here, I've broke it down by the same process that I followed. So, oh Lord, this video is gonna be wild because me jumping all over the place. So you can see kind of the approach I took, right? Foundation, baseline, app specific, Intune, P2, zero trust, and agent. So it follows that framework, and I'm gonna jump around here. I'm gonna go back. It breaks it out by that exact same thing. And so I can see how I'm doing from each phase, and I can roll it up if I want. So if I'm like, hey, I want to see, do I have, all my apps? This is interesting. I didn't even realize I was partial on this. So let me go look at this. So what's happening here? So it's giving me some controls. Everything's going to map back to CIS. In the States, CIS is one of the big ones. I know Cyber Essentials, GDPR. There's some other ones over for the EU and UK. But in the US, everyone kind of knows CIS. Everything aligns to CIS. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have all my policies basically show what the CIS controls are that they apply to or are applicable to them. So the reason this isn't a match is because it looks at the policies and it's going, okay, you have some of those roles, but best practices dictate that you have 43 required admin roles versus the 14. So it's giving me some guidance. How do I reach 100% on this? I go get all these roles added to it. The other thing is, so say I didn't have this actually in there, I'm just going to give you the JSON. So here's the JSON. Here's the JSON with all those roles currently included, and I can go deploy this. All right, come on. And I do include my naming context. So obviously you can always change this to yours, but I do try to follow the naming conventions that I had. So it's basically I trained it based on my repository, my naming context, and everything that I've built out for that. But so this is cool, right? It shows me exactly where my gaps are and what's happening right there. It's also, again, its goal is to take a look at all the policies and see if something is similar to it, and then judge based off that. And it'll give you some information how you could get to 100%. And I showed you how to download, or you can just jump directly to my repository to get it. So that is the templates page. I'm pretty proud of this. I'm actually kind of stoked that it's in an app, and I have a way to keep track of it. And you'll see the app specific, you'll see the Intune specific. You'll notice in the P2, these are grayed out because they're not applicable to my licensing. You've got the zero trust, and I've now got the new agent. Again, high risk agents, not applicable. Technically, I think in preview I could use them, but right now they're not applicable with this licensing. So over time, as this expands out, this will get weighted differently. You can see here, I have put a new policy. This is the new token protection policy, and this is gonna show a lot of other things. You can see right here that it's 100%, but it's also telling me it's in report only. So again, great information. Now, let's go to the CIS tab. This one's extremely fun. So the goal here, you've got some pass fail, you've got some manual, and you've got L1. And if you wanted to just sort by L2, you could do that as well. So let's take a look. At the end of the day, the idea is, are we aligned to CIS best practices? All my policies together should align plus some. So if you do everything, most of those, although -1, because I did one just to show that how we're going to take care of that. But if you take a look here, you can see everything that's passing. Now, this is cool. I want this model to actually be able to go. And the goal is, as the industry changes and best practices are changing, I want it to provide up-to-date information. So I've hooked it into both things like Delta Pulse and MS Learn's database to go, let's take a look at this policy, right? MFA for all users. Well, found one policy that matches. Cool. We're 100% on the policy. Active advisories. It pulled this directly from Delta Pulse. So we know this was released, but starting March 27th, 2026, CA policies targeting all resource will enforce resource exclusions exist. Custom apps requesting only Open ID scopes may now receive an MFA scope, MFA compliance challenge where they didn't before. So if you hadn't already seen this article, this is a new one coming out. You could go click on it and go into Delta Pulse and read about the upcoming change that's happening. So again, it's providing context to the policies I have on active things that this hasn't even happened yet, but is coming. So it's getting me prepared for it so I can take a look. It also then provides Microsoft Learn references. So if I wanted to go check out, okay, well, what's happening here? So extremely excited about this, but I want to show you also just how I can leverage something like this to go and basically improve my environment. So take a look here. This is the unknown or unsupported device platforms are blocked. Well, I have that policy in my thing. So found one policy, but it's not currently enforced. Okay, awesome. Well, what if I didn't have that policy? What if I just wanted to go make that policy real quick? It could go do that. So I've provided the, okay, we don't know how to make this policy. Here's how you would make it. And I give you a step-by-step on how to go make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over here into the tenant. We're going to jump over here. And I'm going to go find all my policies that I've got, unsupported device. And I'm going to go turn this to on. Yep, I understand my account will be impacted. I'm okay with that. Oh. There we go. Camera's freaking out. Okay, so let's go back over here. All right, cool. So it does take a second in the background, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to rescan now that I've turned that policy off. And then let's see if we can go take a look at it again. So I want to show how this can essentially help you real time when you're doing an assessment and get to where it is you're trying to get to. This may take a second. Nope, it's already passed. So there you go. We just went from manual. Essentially, there was a step we needed to do, right? Because it wasn't enabled to, we've now secured the posture. So we're now passing on this test. Well, here's some that we failed on. So an app protection policy. That's an interesting one. I do not currently have an app protection policy in this today. So what can we do? Well, app protection is interesting, right? Because there's some Intune components that have to be done to satisfy this. So it does see that I have a policy that would suffice for it, but currently that policy is disabled. There also is no app protection policy within Intune. So what it does is it gives me some information on how I could create an app protection policy. And then again, what that would look like from a conditional access standpoint if I wanted to create it. I also went a step further because there is no template. So because I have no policy in mind that does this exact thing, which actually this may be something I have to work on because I think this one is actually kind of similar. So we'll take a look at that. I also just provided the sample JSON right here. So you can just take this and go throw it directly in. So again, it is a work in progress. This is V1 of a very, very new thing. But then there's the MS Learn. So this is cool, right? So it's going to once again call out MS Learn things that are coming up. So that new March 2026 announcement. But this is one that bit me recently. I was talking to some people about this. I started implementing token protection. We were testing it in a lab, and I didn't read all the best practices, and it kind of bit me. So it's calling out right here, only supported specific apps, and it's basically calling out those apps. So you could open this and go read how to create the conditional access, some of the things. But I've also taken the guesswork out. So unsupported device types must be excluded. It's called out right here. So this is what bit me. I was on a Windows 365 intra-joined device. Well, the fix was this remediation right here. So if you click on the view learn document, it says known limitations, and it points out devices registered with Microsoft Entra ID using the following methods are unsupported. Cloud PCs deployed by Windows 365 that are Microsoft Entra joined. So when I couldn't launch any of my applications and I went, what do? This was the reason. I just missed over. I literally missed this. Here was the fix right here. Now it just shows me, here's the fix. Go put these rules in to fix your issue. It also calls out other best practices, Teams code block, breaking Teams Android remote sign-in, Defender for mobile on CA policies. This is a common one. It's going to break out every policy that may be problematic with this, and the exclusions that you may have to put in depending on that. So here's the remediation. Exclude Microsoft Defender ATP. So I'm pretty stoked on this. Also, the best part. Sorry, Meryl, but I did need an export, right? So you can export everything in either JSON, Excel, or PowerPoint. Let's look at the Excel real quick. The Excel is not really that pretty, but if all you want are the policies, it does the job. It gets everything out. It gives you the finding, and it provides the CIS alignment to what it is you're trying to do. Now, my favorite, PowerPoint. So here's the PowerPoint. Let's get the PowerPoint presentation. All right, there it is. So what it does is it pulls a little logo. I did my little logo from my GitHub repo. I'm going to make this bigger. And it provides you a walkthrough of, again, your score and then all the policies. And it breaks out each policy. Very, very similar to Meryl's product, but a little bit different, not quite the same. I'm still working on getting all the like roles and groups, kind of the object IDs converted into the actual names, but you can see the names here that I've converted. You can see here where the apps are, some of the groups and the apps are resolving. There are some where I'm still just having issues, and we're working on that. There's others that say, hey, medium, issues, you may want to go check these policies. But this is what this looks like. And again, it's a fully documented. So I've got everything. If I'm in the middle of a flow, I can show all this and it's ready to go. I'm pretty stoked on it. I wanted to share it with you guys. It's been a pretty fun little project that I've been working on. It'll be released soon. But again, it is all me. There is no, this is not affiliated with Microsoft. This is not affiliated with Enforcer. These are best practices and things I'm stating. So like, take it for what it is. It is a development tool. If you want to use it, it's free. Go check it out, hit the ground. You can feel free to let me know if you have some issues or recommendations. Happy to see if I can get those added in. But at the end of the day, just wanted to let you guys know what I'm working on, and I'm pretty excited about it. All right.